Welcome to You and Your Democracy. It's a short take civics lesson as part of our program, Where Do We Go From Here? I'm Chuck Parkinson. Each episode, we will look at the head and heart of democracy. We will explore the values and the principles that have created our American exceptionalism and examine the structures and institutions that give us the guardrails of our democratic republic. To quote Benjamin Franklin when asked in 1787 after the Constitutional Convention, "Doctor, what have we got, a republic or monarchy?" To which Franklin responded with a rejoinder at once witty and ominous, "A republic if you can keep it." So now let's take a look at what is this great American experiment, and then ask, what do we need to do to keep it? Elections determines who make decisions. National elections get most of the attention, but local elections have a greater impact on our day-to-day lives. In this episode, we will discuss how your voice can be heard and make a difference in local government. I am pleased to be joined by the chair of the Rapid City Common Council, Laura Armstrong. Thanks for joining us today, Laura.
My pleasure.
Why should we be interested in local elections and local government?
Well, we are in some strange times, and we see what's going on nationally, and it is concerning. And it's something that we can do locally. You will see action quicker than if you saw it on a larger scale. So if you want to make a big difference, start local and then grow it out.
I think that's a very important point to make, is that a lot of people don't realize that local governments make decisions that impact each and every one of us every day, where at the federal level, it may be drawn out and it may be a while before those things get down to us. Could you give us an example of how that might impact me or my neighbors on any given day?
Well, the beauty of working out of Rapid City is we are not New York City. We know each other. We know our neighbors. I have had so many people walk up to me in Walmart or Safeway or even at the park and say, "Hey, Laura, what's going on with urban hens, or what's going on with the water issue?" And we can have those face-to-face conversations, of course socially distanced, but we can have those conversations face-to-face, and it's a lot more personal.
I think that's a big thing, personal, where you as an elected member of the city council have your neighbors, you see them often. We have that ability to talk to people and actually go to city council meetings and get involved from that standpoint.
Right, and things are on electronic, so you can attend these meetings electronically. Everything is on video now, and if you have mobility issues or you can't drive or the weather's bad, you can still be involved by listening. And let me tell you, that's where you learn. You really need to listen to each other on the council, in the community, and to one another.
I think you mentioned something, a word that's very important that's often forgotten about government. You mentioned the word community.
Right, exactly. Of course, we have government and then we have community. And when we hear the word government, especially in these times, some people just want to tune out. They don't want to deal with politics and they just kind of push that aside. But if you really think about it as community, then it's a lot more personal. If you like animals, you can get involved with your humane society, which is under the umbrella of our municipal government. If you love to read or you're an avid reader of books, you can get involved with your library, which is under the umbrella of government.
I think that's one thing that's also important. You don't have to seek office to be involved. You can be involved in many other ways. Could you give some examples of that?
Absolutely. I was definitely coerced to run. I love those face-to-face conversations. Being in the public spotlight has been a learning experience for me, but I rely so much, not only on my fellow council members, but my constituents to tell me, how a certain issue directly impacts their life. So just having a community support, having people on boards that can give you a little more communication, you can help somebody run for office this. You can even start your own group. I mean, you look at our young leaders, and we just had Youth City Council come together, and now they're official part of our municipal government. But you don't even have to make it official like that. You can do something as a coat drive, or a walk, or something. So you are involved in your community and you're connecting with fellow community members.
I think that's the one thing with the umbrella we talk on this program about the head and the heart. And obviously, the head is the mechanisms that make government work from that standpoint. And along that line, as the umbrella works, there are a number of boards that exist, made up of citizens of the community. And it's just not, and they're a funnel actually driving a lot of topics and discussion areas to the city council. Could you give an example of things that have boiled up rather than have, a lot of people think that government comes from down or up on top and goes down all the time, but there are oftentimes the place where things start at the grassroots and bubble up.
Well, perfect example is what I just mentioned, the Youth City Council. We had some kids that were wanting to get involved in government, but they were only 14, 15, 16 years old. And, technically you're not considered an adult until you're 18. So this Youth City Council came together, and they're made up of people from ages 14 to 18, and they've worked their way up. So that's a really good example of how they can get involved. It was just sparked by an idea, and it's worked its way up.
I think we've had a conversation with a couple of members of the Youth City Council, and they are wonderful. The two young women are just wonderful reflection of what the youth in the community, who they are and what they can be.
They are young leaders. I can't even refer to them as kids. Technically they are, but I have changed my vocabulary. They are young leaders.
And we need young leaders because they're going to be the people who are in charge and hold the office that you hold.
And I rely on them. I reach out to them to see where they are on cultural relations, on environmental policies. It's important to them. They are a part of this community, and their voice matters.
In the era we're in right now, people can get overwhelmed with the amount of media attention being done. The issues that deal with COVID, the issues that on our everyday life, because life has been disrupted significantly over the last 6 months. And the city council has been very involved in activities and listening to what the community has had to say. Could we expand a little bit on that, on how you see that and how things have evolved, and how some of the decisions that the council, how they've gotten to the point of decision that the council has made on some issues?
Are we talking about COVID or?
Not necessarily COVID, but the mere fact that everybody kind of gets overwhelmed at this particular point, and just it's a pick and choose on something that might have happened and come to mind in your mind that we might want to address on this.
There's so many issues. I mean, it could be something as, I don't want to say minor, but minor as parking. You think, okay, how do new meters, how will that impact our community? Some people say, oh, well, no big deal. But then you talk with downtown business owners, and they have a different perspective. So, I mean, it could be parking meters. It could be urban chickens is coming up. And it's really interesting. You think, oh, no big deal. But you have people that have genuine concerns. I had one woman actually reach out to me. She has a clinical diagnosis of fear of chickens, something that I never even thought about. So I'm not making fun of her. I mean, I never really even thought of that aspect. But then you have the sustainability committee saying this is a good thing, given there was a disruption in the food supply. So again, you use these issues to talk to our constituents, talk to our neighbors, and get their input and their stories on how these issues impact them directly, and you can bring that to council, and you can put forth a really well-researched discussion about the matter. We want to make well-informed decisions. We don't want to make knee-jerk decisions.
That's a good solid point. And the fact is that we've talked a little bit about where you can talk face to face, but what other resources are there available? I know the city has a fairly extensive website that gives information. What advice would you give to people who want to get involved or want to have their voice heard that may not have that advantage of having a face-to-face conversation with a member of the council?
Well, give them a phone call. I have my phone number published on the website, much to my family's dismay. But I've had some great conversations with some people, and they have a thought, or they have an idea, or a project, and they honestly just pick up the phone. Email. I mean, you can go as techie as you want and Skype and have a meeting with somebody, or Zoom, or you can just do an old-fashioned. I've gotten some letters, I've gotten phone calls and emails, and I would say emails are the best way to get a hold of me, because it's a reminder to reach back out to them. But given my schedule, sometimes the phone is just the best way to give me a call. I will meet for coffee, socially distanced, did that on Friday. There's a way to do it. And if you can't get a hold of one council member, there are many others. Just go down the line. Just because you're in Ward 5 doesn't mean you only have to speak to the Ward 5 representatives. I say reach out to as many as you can, because then you can see where they are in a particular issue.
Well, short takes are short takes. Any final thoughts you'd like to leave with us?
The thing that comes to mind is everybody can do their part. Each and every one of us. I don't care if you're 7 years old or if you're in your 70s or 80s. You can do something. If you are frustrated or concerned, reach out to your council members, reach out to your neighbors, talk with one another. I know we're divisive on a lot of issues, but my theory is you can always find one common thread between two people, and you can start there, and then you might have 2 or 3 or 4. I know so many people that we are politically on opposite ends of the spectrum, but we have so much in common, and that's what I just focus on, because that is what moves us forward.
That's what makes government work.
Absolutely.
Is discussion, listening, and compromise.
And action.
That's our episode for now. I want to thank Laura Armstrong for sharing her expertise and thoughts with us today. And as always, our executive producer, Suzanne Stratford, and the SDPB technical staff for their creativity and hard work on this program. Thank you also to the supporters of South Dakota Public Broadcasting who make this program possible. To view previous episodes in this series, go to sdpb.org/election. If you have comments or suggestions for future episodes, send us a note at programming@sdpb.org. Until our next short take, I'm Chuck Parkins.